Hi, this is AP Stedham of AP As We See It Live in Atlanta, Georgia at the 2025 SEC Football Media Days. Our very special guest will be discussing the Mississippi State Bulldogs, and her name is?
Crissy Froyd.
Oh, for where?
Everywhere. I live in Carrollton, Georgia right now, but I'm from Houston, Texas.
USA Today.
Yes.
Crissy, the quarterback, that's your specialty. So Blake Shapen, he transferred from Baylor last year, played about 4 games before he was injured. What was your assessment in that short term that he had last year?
Yeah, Blake Shapen is a quarterback who has played on both sides at this point because he comes from more of a pro-style offense at Baylor, and then he gets over to Mississippi State. And it's not the air raid anymore, but Jeff Lebby does bring to the table the score from far offense, and he's really excited, he says, to be playing in that because they throw the ball downfield, so it's very quarterback-friendly, and obviously terminology and a lot of that stuff's a lot different than what he comes from. So that's going to prepare him to potentially be a dark horse prospect in the 2026 NFL draft, I believe. I think he brings a lot to the table, particularly in mobility and toughness. I think he's got a pretty good football IQ and has seen pretty much everything at this point between playing those different offenses and the portal. It's just going to be a matter if he stays healthy. And all that to say, it's tough to evaluate from a 4-game stretch, but the way that Mississippi State crumbled even further and went 2-10 at the end of the season, they certainly missed him.
If they can revive that offense, that's the key, because defensively they have a long way to go.
I mean, between Jeff Lebby's first year and now, Mississippi State has added 50 players in the transfer portal, and they've addressed every single position that there is. So they've got a few guys that are standouts that are returning, but at the same time, this is going to be just kind of a fun game of watching how these guys pan out. It's almost Mississippi State might be the most unpredictable team in the SEC this year.
I think so. And then the glaring stat was the 10 sacks, I believe. It's hard to rely on your defense if you only have 10 sacks in the entire season.
One of the things that was noted is that Mississippi State had one of the worst just pass rushes in the nation last year, and so you talk about that. I mean, I think that it's going to come down to the play of the edge rushers and then kind of getting that defense going. But one thing that Jeff Lebby also mentioned is the morale, and I think that there's a lot to be said about that because we watched the way that Billy Napier in Florida turned things around, and it sounds really cliche, but at the same time, having a team that has more energy and more belief in itself can make all the difference in the world, because I think that some teams just get on a skid to where they're just like, let's just get through this for the rest of the season, kind of stop trying.
Surviving the season, right. You know, one thing I like about Mississippi State in general is they play the Mississippi team, Southern Miss and Alcorn State. You know, not every state university will share the wealth. So I really applaud them for scheduling those 2 teams, and that's 2 potential wins.
Yeah, I think that Mississippi State has a decent chance of coming out with wins in both of those games. We also look at the way they got blown out by Toledo last year, and the expectations are all over the place, but unfortunately most people are not as optimistic as Jeff Lebby is, so I could see those going either way. I do think there's a strong chance for a win specifically against Alcorn State, but I do think it's going to be a lot of fun for the state of Mississippi because they do love their football, and while Mississippi State and Ole Miss are kind of the bigger teams to watch, Southern Miss has had some really good ups before, and then just to kind of see on a level playing field, if you will, Mississippi State a little bit weaker than it has been in past years, and so I think kind of gives those fan bases some hope to see a more competitive matchup on the other sides for the smaller teams.
Right. Southern Miss was always a school where they wanted to attend Mississippi State or Ole Miss, and they ended up at Southern Miss, so they've always had that chip on their shoulder usually.
And at the same time, though, Southern Miss has produced some really good players, like Frank Gore's relative. I know that he was there. They've had some guys that have gone to the NFL that have kind of caused some flashes there. So I think they're an intriguing team to watch. I mean, after I was covering Tulane and teams like that in that conference, I watched them play Southern Miss, and you kind of get a little bit more of appreciation for what they can provide there.
And that game's in Hattiesburg, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think that's unique that they're willing to go to a smaller school, per se. I'm calling it a smaller school, just FBS level, but perceived as the smaller school. Anything else you'd like to say about this Mississippi State team, offense, defense, special teams, coaching?
I think that the scoring defense is going to be something to watch. It was the worst in the SEC last season, so they have a chance to really improve in that area. And just in general, they kept the coaching staff mostly intact, so it's going to be interesting to see. It's a complete wild card. Now, I think Mississippi State has a lot of rebuilding to do, so if they go on one side of the pendulum, it's not going to be great. I think you have to set some reason on the expectations, but I think that this is a team that could either be really bad once again. I think it's harder to be as bad as you were last year. Or if a lot of these transfer portal additions, like I said, 50, that's a lot. And then we watch what Jeff Lebby did at Ole Miss with that offense with Lane Kiffin, how much success they had. I think Mississippi State has the potential to be a lot more successful than people think that they are. And you can just see from the guys they brought to media days, just the genuine heart that shines through. And as someone who's covered several teams in person in the SEC, I haven't really seen anything like it, the way that the blue-collar mentality is that Mississippi State carries.
Yeah, they were very forthcoming in their the interviews today. I mean, they know their limitations and their errors that they made last year, and they understand it and trying to reverse those. And I would say this, if they can get through the meet and greet of the 50 players and get to know each other, they have a chance. They have a chance.
Absolutely. One of the toughest schedules they've been up against in a little while, and it is not any easier than last year, so it's going to be interesting to watch, but I think that they're definitely going to give it their all.
Hey, Crissy, thank you so much for taking a few moments with us today. This is AP Stedham of AP As We See It, live here in Atlanta at the 2025 SEC Football Media Days. Thank you, Crissy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was great. Let me check.